Hey, my name's Paul Maxwell, and today we're going to talk about how to engineer your outlook because it really affects your outcome. Over the past year, I've transitioned from working in a job that I really don't like and having an experience of employers and of life that was pretty tough. And I had a lot of self-pity. And I really thought gratitude was like this very cliche thing that people would use to kind of like diminish your emotions. And I just had a negative outlook on a lot of different things. And actually, this journey has been about the past 2 years for me, but I've really discovered the practical power of gratitude as a cognitive technique and as a way to achieve your goals. And I've built a seven-figure agency for myself, which is unbelievable. And I hear people say that, and I'm like, there's no way 99% of the people saying that are telling the truth. But um, yeah, it happened. And it was in no small part due to people in my life absolutely gifting me the patience and time to teach me how to think this way. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to show you today are things that I've inherited from other people. But we're going to look at two things. Number one, how to engineer an outlook loop. So we need to understand how outlook affects behavior. All right. And then what the loop is for that. And number two, how you determine your outlook. Okay. Those are the two things we're going to look at. What is the outlook loop? Okay, let's look at this. This is the outlook loop. First of all, we have outlook. Now, outlook, okay, outlook is your point of view that you choose to take on the world. All right. Is it going to be something that focuses on the positive or focuses on the negative? You might say, well, Paul, it needs to be balanced. I just want to see reality. No, this is a bias. Your outlook is a bias. And it's the bias that you choose. You get to choose that bias. And that's fantastic. And we're going to look at that in a moment. Okay. Now, your outlook affects your aim. Okay. Because whatever you believe or however you see the world determines what you think is possible. Right? If you focus on the negative, it's going to determine a specific aim. If you focus on the positive, it's going to be a separate aim. All right. Now, let me go out a little bit. The next thing that aim determines is effort, because if you have a specific aim that is low, it's going to induce low efforts because it's not going to require anything from you. Now, if you have an aim that is high, it is going to recruit or require more effort. But again, if you don't think it's possible, you're not going to aim for it. And then finally, you have the results, right? Or what I actually, I don't want to talk about this in terms of results. I want to talk about this in terms of outcome, right? Ba, 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 ba. No, not a circle. All right, outcome. Now, here's the way that this loop actually works. Ready? So if I have here a positive outlook, right? And we're going to put this in the outside here, then that gives me a vision. This positive outlook gives me a vision for my future that becomes an aim, right? I'm going to aim high for myself, right? If I believe that it's possible for me to build a business and become self-employed and build wealth for myself and save money and work out and be in shape and have the life that I want, if it's possible, I'm going to set the aim to do it. If I don't think it's possible, I'm not going to waste my time thinking about it, right? I'm not just going to fantasize about a life that I can't have. Right. So the higher my vision is, the higher my aim is. All right. Then if I have a high aim, then that induces high effort. So here we have a high aim, right? This is the virtuous version. So we have the outlook loop, which has a virtuous versus vicious. The virtuous is a positive outlook and the vicious is a negative outlook, right? So we're following the virtuous path, right? So I have a positive outlook that induces a vision, which creates a positive upward aim. And if I have a positive upward outlook, where I believe that it is plausible, and I have a positive outward aim that I believe is plausible, that creates motivation. right? So now I have this awesome cycle going. And then the more I am putting in a high effort, so now my effort increases. And if my effort increases, so working smarter and harder, here, now the outcome increases because I have induced causation, right? Where I've got increased outlook causes vision, which causes an increased aim, which causes motivation, which causes increased effort, which causes causation, right? So now motivation gets into this causation piece. And then when I have the increased outcome, and again, does increased effort guarantee increased outcome? No, this is where cynicism really creeps its ugly head in. The problem is, if you are working smarter and harder, that's what's within your control. Okay. Okay. But your effort, this is what you can control. You can't control, if you're putting in maximum effort and maximum strategy and you're working as smart and as hard as you can, everything else is outside of your control. Okay, so we're not focusing. You say, well, increased effort doesn't guarantee outcome. Well, okay, like within the domain of your control, practically it does, right? Because you're widening the window of plausibility in terms of that increased outcome. So now, through effort, your outlook becomes an aim, and that aim has a direct relationship to outcome. Okay. And indirect because it's going through effort. And then finally, when you see that outcome, when you have a little bit of a progressively better outcome, now you actually reinforce your positive outlook, right? And what you actually end up doing is you generate inspiration. So you actually inspire yourself. Okay. So now you have causation, which leads to inspiration, which goes all the way back around and says, wow, if I can accomplish that, if I can acquire, if I can get to the place where I can generate enough income to actually quit my job, maybe I can generate enough income to do even more, right? And your vision gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and your outlook gets more and more and more positive. So I'm looking at this drawing now and I'm realizing it looks extremely like a third grader. No shade to third graders. So pardon me. I never pretended to be an artist, nor will I ever pretend. So just suffer with me there. But this is, notice the thing that's happening here. We've got all of these positive arrows, right? We've got all these positive arrows pointing up, right? This is all great stuff. We've got increased outlook, increased aim. This up arrow is the mechanism by which we generate or perpetuate this virtuous cycle. Okay. This is the powerhouse. It is the gasoline that actually keeps this motion in play as we move forward. Okay. So I want you to focus on this green circle being powered by these green upward arrows. Increased outlook, increased aim, increased effort, increased outcome. Vision generating motivation, generating causation, generating inspiration. Okay. Now we have these downward arrows. Okay. What happens if I have a pessimistic outlook? Okay. Down. Wah, wah. Okay. Now we have a downward arrow. Now, what does that cause? So the downward arrow, this is what we're going to say causes, I don't mean this in a mental health sense necessarily, but we're going to say deflation because our vision gets small, right? And now that's what's happening there. And when our aim is small, our effort is small. And here we have demotivation. Right. And when we try less hard and we devote less cognitive resources to trying harder and trying smarter, right? That causes let's see. That causes abdication, where we give up. Abdication, it's either an I or a U. And then when we give up, we obviously don't see as much of an outcome and we're leaving more to luck, right? We're just wishing, we're saying, man, why can't I catch a break, right? And this causes despair, right? despair, and or self-pity. Man, why can't I catch a break? Right? So that's kind of this cycle here. That's what we call, again, this is the vicious cycle. So this downward red arrow up here in the top, that's the vicious cycle. And this green arrow is the virtuous cycle. Okay. Boom. And all of this is a product of having kind of a downward arrow here, right? Where we can have a vicious cycle and we can also have a virtuous cycle, right? And this inward vicious cycle is one that goes from negative outlook, which leads to deflation, okay? And which leads to a lower aim, which leads to demotivation, okay? Which leads to lower effort, which leads to abdication, which leads to lower outcome, which leads to despair, which leads to lower outlook. And that's the cycle that you've got there. Whoops. Internally, right? Whereas if I have this and I have this circle, that's external. Okay. So you see how the negative circle is kind of small and the positive circle is big because it's generating a lot of big energy for you. So this is the outlook loop. Yes. You're either going green on the outside or you're going red on the inside and you're following these down arrows, right? So you're either in this virtuous loop and your vicious loop, and it all starts here. Listen, I know we're looking at a lot of different things, right? What's the essence of what I'm saying? What is the essence of what I'm saying? Here's the essence. Ready? We're talking about the practical cognitive import of outlook as the starting point or entry point for green arrow up, red arrow down. And the whole concept, the whole relationship we're talking about here is the relationship between outlook is a function which produces outcome. Okay. Now, again, people are going to say, oh man, what about my circumstances? What about luck? What about things outside of my control? If it's outside of your control, why are we even talking about it? Okay. And there's two paths you can take here. You can have a positive outlook going to a positive outcome, or you can have a negative outlook going to a negative outcome, all through this loop, right? And the mechanisms which achieve this are aim and effort. Okay. And the way that this works is the positive outlook produces vision, which produces a positive belief in your future, and a positive aim, which produces motivation, which produces more effort, which produces a causation to outcome, which produces inspiration when you see that positive outcome so that your outlook gets higher and your vision increases. Or you have a negative outlook, which produces a lower aim, which produces deflation. It deflates your vision to a lower aim, which produces demotivation, which leads to lower effort, which leads you to give up, which leads to a lower outcome because you're not trying, which leads to despair, which leads to a lower outlook. Okay. So this is the outlook loop. The concept here is called the outlook loop. Now, I said that we were going to talk about two concepts, the outlook loop and the outlook on-ramp. So the outlook on-ramp is this. The outlook on-ramp. Boom. Now, the outlook on-ramp is basically this. Wait, let me see. You know what? I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to put the outlook on-ramp up here. The outlook on ramp. What time is it? 5:30? Dang. Gym's open. Okay, I got to get to the gym, but I'm going to do the outlook on ramp. Where basically what we have is this starting point, okay, where we say life is hard. Life is hard. Okay. Um, and this is our starting point. Now there's two directions we can go here. One, two. And these directions are basically where you have a high self-esteem or low self-esteem. Now, you might be wondering, what does self-esteem have to do with any of this? Isn't that kind of like a cliche, overblown concept? Okay, I have a bunch of videos on self-esteem. Go to my YouTube and watch them. But at a high level, I recommend reading Nathaniel Branden's book, Honoring the Self, or if you want a shorter version, it's called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, where he defines self-esteem. Nathaniel Branden basically coined the concept of self-esteem, and then the later sort of pop psychology movement kind of took it over. And there's like uh, there's like developmental psychology took it over. It said, oh, the role of self-esteem and like for children and education and blah, blah, blah. But it's not about that. Nathaniel Branden talks about it more as a core concept of the self, of selfhood. It's more of a sort of philosophical or logical approach to selfhood, right? So kind of get rid of any like bias you have against this concept of self-esteem, because Branden talks about self-esteem as the combination of self-confidence and self-worth. Self-confidence is the belief that I can handle the challenges of life in a way that is competent, and also that I am worthy. Self-worth is that I deserve to be happy. Okay, so I'm competent to handle the challenges of life, and I deserve to be happy. Those are the two components: self-confidence and self-worth that constitute self-esteem. Okay. Once again, self-esteem is the belief that I'm competent to handle the challenges of life and that I deserve to be happy. Okay. It gets deeper into that, and those two concepts break into like 3 sub-concepts each. It's pretty cool. Again, I highly recommend the 6 pillars of self-esteem. But here we can go in one of 2 loops. Okay. We can say, I have low self-esteem. And if I have low self-esteem, that means I don't believe I'm competent to handle the challenges of life, and I don't deserve to be happy. Okay. Or at the very least, I'm not capable of handling the challenges of life. Maybe I think I deserve to be happy, but I'm not capable of handling the challenges of life. That's a tough cookie, right? Because in that case, I am powerless becomes your mantra, right? Now, if you're powerless, then you think, I am a victim. Other people actually are responsible, right? And if other people are responsible, that means other people should have helped me. See how this is progressing, right? And then where does this lead? I resent them, right? That's where that goes. So then this goes somewhere. This ends somewhere. But before we go there, I'll give you a little hint where this ends. Give you a little hint where this ends. Okay. Now, there's another way of going about this, which is the high self-esteem, which is, again, high self-esteem in response to life is hard. Okay. So the high self-esteem says, I am lucky. Life does not have to be this good. It doesn't. Think of how bad your life could be. It could be a lot worse. I'll tell you that. It could be a lot worse than it is now. Think of all the good things in your life and think of all the bad things in your life that don't exist, right? I am lucky. This ding, ding, ding is what we call gratitude. This is a key thing that's happening right now. Okay. This is key. This is a star concept and it is core to what's happening. This is a bottleneck to this perspective. Okay. And so also is this belief in powerlessness a bottleneck here, right? But I am lucky, which moves to this point of then saying, really, I am, and I don't mean this in any religious sense. I don't mean it, although you can take it that way if you want, but I don't mean this in a religious sense, right? I am blessed. Now, what I mean by that is I'm taking this from the Greek word charis, um, which just means gift. Okay, I'm gifted. I've been gifted in my life by the universe, by other people, but I am blessed fundamentally. Thank God. And again, I don't mean by that God or theism or Christianity or even your higher power or whatever. It's not about that. This has nothing to do with that. It's just a cognitive mechanism to say, again, I don't really think we have another English word that really captures this concept. Don't let the religious connotations of this term rob you of this word. Like I am blessed. I'm gifted. I have so many good things in my life. Here we're talking about the gratitude chain, right? Gratitude. Here, I'm gratitude for what I have. I'm grateful for what I have, and I'm grateful that I don't have certain things in my life. Think of all the things you don't have in your life that you're grateful you don't have in your life. Disease, maybe you do have disease. Poverty, maybe you do have poverty, but there's a lot. It could be a lot worse. Things could get a lot worse, and getting out of them goes back to the outlook loop, which we'll get to later. But we have high self-esteem, which leads to I am lucky, which leads to I am blessed, right? Which leads to others actually have helped me. Wow. Thank God for them. Again, I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean, whatever, the universe, you know, just like thanks be to whomever or whatever for the people in my life that have added gifts to my life. Nobody is here without having received gifts from other people. And then this is a tough one for me because people told me this, be grateful, and it felt like emotional bullying. I did not like it when people told me to be grateful. Didn't like it. I still don't sometimes because it feels kind of like they're diminishing my emotions. They're not listening to me. People like to feel heard and acknowledged, and I feel like I'm not being heard and acknowledged. And people say, hey, man, just be grateful. You've got a lot of good things in your life. I was talking to a friend last night, and I was I was complaining about my life, and they said, you know what, pal? You've got a lot of good things in your life right now. And I told them and my response to them was, I just don't feel like I'm conveying to you what I'm going through. Right. And there was this tension because I wanted to feel heard and they were telling me to be grateful. Right. And that's okay. You can hold that tension. And I'm not saying you always have to have this like constant hum of gratitude always going in your life. That's just not a human thing. Emotions fluctuate. That's totally fine. But fundamentally, returning to your belief in this truth, in this attitude, this disposition that you have to say, I am grateful. Again, the real challenge here is that this is so cliche, right? Boo, right? So cliche. Ugh. I get it, right? But if you do this, this is like go to jail, do not collect $200. Whoopsies. I'm going down here and I'm going to start building up resentments towards people. And then you're going to lead into this outcome. Okay. So be very careful about not being grateful because it's cliche or simplistic. All right. And then you have gratitude. Once you have gratitude, you believe that your life is positive. Right. And you get to this place where you say, so remember where we started? Life is hard. Right. Now, where does the gratitude go? Gratitude is the foundational belief for saying this phrase to yourself. My life is good. And if you resent everybody and believe you're a victim, you're going to say, my life is bad. Okay. And this ultimately comes down to one thing. Where does this all come back to? Where does this all come back to? Okay. Where you have your outlook. Right? And your outlook can either be down, or your outlook can be up. That's what it's all about. Okay. And it resolves here. And then we have this going into the outlook loop, right? Where we have the outside or the inside. This outlook loop leads right. Whoops. Let's switch to white. This outlook loop leads right to outlook here, right? And this outlook loop, right? This arrow either becomes this arrow or this arrow either becomes this arrow. Okay? I know there's probably a better way that I could draw that. But basically, yeah, you've got your outlook there. Okay? And maybe there's a better way of drawing that. Maybe I could draw this orthogonally. So, good. Okay? So, this is kind of the picture here. All right? Where we've got these two concepts, right? We've got number one is here, and number two is here. I hate that. But I'll choose to have a positive outlook. But this is basically the outlook loop versus the outlook on-ramp. All right? Now, this is extremely important for me today. I'm really creating this for myself because I woke up in a bad mood. I had a bad dream, and today I am preaching to myself. So I'm gonna choose to have a positive outlook today. Doing this exercise for me is useful, and I hope watching this has been useful for you. Subscribe to my newsletter if you want more content like this. I send out a weekly newsletter. Follow me on social media. Let me know in the comments or on social media if this truth resonates with you. I would love to hear your point of view. All right, thanks so much.